Welcome to Fireside Jets. My name is Alex, my co-host here, Ryan Moran. And today, what better day to talk about Denzel Mims? Where the hell is this guy gone? What is his role moving forward? Is he a slot guy? Is he a boundary guy? Is he a trade prospect? We want to discuss, the avenues the Jets can go down with Denzel Mims, who's kind of fallen off the earth, but seems to be in better shape. You'll see some clips throughout this video on YouTube if you're listening there. And kind of seeing what he's done in the past, what he's doing this offseason, and what is his value? Like, is it even worth trading him or kind of helping him develop and continue on? Maybe you extend him if you show some flash. But Ryan, before we dive into Denzel Mims and what he offers this New York Jets team, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all good, Alex. It's a fascinating conversation, obviously, for all Jet fans and people in the media pertaining to Denzel Mims. It has been really since probably around this time last year when reports were out that, Keelan Cole was getting opportunities over him with the starters and he had that food poisoning issue. And it was just all so shocking. Like, he was a pretty highly touted prospect in 2020 that the Jets were able to acquire in the second round, a guy with all the size and speed measurables you could ask for, 4.3 speed, 6'3", 210, really posted some good things his rookie year after an injury. And last year was just complete lost cause, injuries. His main concern, which, showed up as a route runner, in LaFleur's offense, made the transition kind of tough for him. And, it's led to a lot of speculation really since last September, when the Jets offense was struggling and he didn't have much of a role. It's been, from fans and beat reporters alike, what the deal is, what's up with him and his deal. And, it's this offseason has been fascinating just because, he seems to have, really taken last year and learned from it, like mentally, physically. He seems to be in better shape. And, Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh have been hyping him up a ton. So we're sitting here wondering, is he going to have a role on this team or is he trade bait?
Well, that's the big question. And if he is trade bait, what is he even worth? Because you're talking about a receiver that had rookie season 357 yards last year, 133 yards, 0 touchdowns to his name. As you mentioned, 2020 second round pick, 59th overall, coming out of Baylor, who had all the measurables. 6'3", 215 pounds. Dude is a great prospect, and he's a good body on paper, but hasn't been able to put it together. The injuries, the scheme change. I think last year had a couple of good games. Week 1, came out 40 yards. So good plays there. He only had 1 reception. Then, week 5, 2 receptions for 33 yards. And then, week 8, 30 receptions, 3 targets. So he doesn't really get targeted that much. But, when he has gotten the ball in his hands, he's made some things happen. A lot of his reps have kind of come from out wide. 76.9% of them came out wide, 21.6 from the slot. But he really is more of that boundary receiver. So, at this point in time, how are you ranking him in the Jets wide receiver core? Are you looking at, him behind Berrios? Are you looking at him in the 4 spot behind, I don't even know. I guess you could say it's like at this point, maybe Elijah Moore and Corey Davis are neck and neck. Then you have Garrett Wilson. Those 3 guys, interchangeable. Who's in that 4 spot? And do you think he even will crack that top 4?
100%. So I'm with you. I think the top 3 are pretty self-explanatory with Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, and Corey Davis. And to me, until proven otherwise, I think Braxton Berrios is the 4th guy of this group. He really took his opportunities last year, especially down the stretch, when Moore, Davis, Jameson Crowder, all those guys were out. And, he made a ton of big plays. I think he's a good fit in LaFleur's offense, with all the pre-snap motioning, jet sweeps, orbit motioning, the screen game. Berrios is great in that gadget role. He's dynamic after the catch. And, Mims down the stretch last year, him and Keelan Cole both had opportunities, and it just nothing really materialized. Zach didn't have much to work with. And, last year is last year at this point. Like I said, it seems like he, took the opportunity this offseason to really get himself into better shape. And to me, I think there's a huge concern after Berrios with that 5th receiver spot. And you're an injury or 2 away from, needing someone who could go in there and, contribute reliably for Zach Wilson. And to me, Mims as that wide receiver 5 is still that guy.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable argument to make. When you're thinking about Mims, he has the tangibles, just really hasn't been able to put it together. As you mentioned, the injury concerns are what we should be really harping on, because 1 injury, 2 injuries, and suddenly you're in a big predicament here. Especially with Elijah Moore missing a little bit of time last year. I don't think he's injury prone, but you never know. Corey Davis definitely has missed time throughout his career. And then Mims himself is injury prone. So it's you have to have supplemental guys. Braxton Berrios has proven to be a phenomenal little slot receiver for you. for the Jets, and really, good on those end arounds. He can do all those little things. He's a good special teamer in terms of kick returning and whatnot. Really tough guy for a small one. It looks like his helmet. It looks like one of those fat heads from back then you stuck on your wall. He's just a huge helmet, and the rest of his body looks tiny. It's hilarious, but he's a tough son of a gun. I really like Braxton Berrios for that reason. But if you were considering trading Mims, what is the minimum compensation you'd want in return? Because he is a former second round pick. He's only going into his third season. You have 2 more years of control until he's a free agent. What is his worth right now, especially coming off 2 kind of inconsistent seasons with a bunch of injuries?
Yeah, it's an intriguing point. I think, realistically, the value is not really going to match up for the Jets to make a move. I think personally, if you're the Jets, you're looking for a 4th or a 5th round pick. And I think at most the teams would probably give you a 6th at this point. I mean, it's just, you said no touchdowns in the NFL. I mean, that was a big thing with him at Baylor, and his size, his ability in the red zone, just his route running obviously is definitely raw. And, it just kind of all comes back to the point, like, I think it makes, the most sense for the Jets to just keep him, Barrios, while he's that wide receiver 4, I don't think, ideally with his size, you really want him on the outside. And to me, Mims, if Corey Davis goes down, is kind of that ideal replacement to go in there and just has the talent for Zach to, not have too much of a drop off. And, the trade value, it's fascinating because the Jets really have hyped him up a ton, like I said, with JD and Salah all off season. But I don't think that the NFL is necessarily looking at him and saying we're giving up a 4th or 5th round pick. So, and that's really what I would expect if they were to make a move. So ultimately, I think it just makes the most sense to, give him one more chance this year.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think next year, maybe then you're looking, if he comes off a good season, maybe then you try to trade him on a high, but his value is at an all-time low. So you just be kind of selling at a bad point in time. But, looking at the Jets cap situation right now, they have 8.8, almost 8.9 million in cap space. So they're pretty healthy in that regard. CJ Mosley's taken up a ton of money, $20.5 million dead hit this year is a 17.5 cap hit. Next year, I think that kind of goes away for the most part. They can cut him and say 15.5 mil. Carl Lawson coming off the injury, he's counting a ton, 15.6 million dead money, and then 15.3 mil cap hit. Corey Davis, obviously. So they have a couple guys who are getting paid. John Franklin Myers got paid a pretty hefty price. So, he's counting 12.5 million against the cap this year. Definitely deserving, had a pretty solid year. Would like to see a little bit more consistency. But, when you're looking at the Jets with the cap situation, they have some flexibility if they do want to go out and sign somebody. And the market looks pretty healthy right now. You got Julio Jones, Will Fuller, T.Y. Hilton, Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, Alan Hearns, Albert Wilson, Deshaun Jackson, Danny Amendola, OBJ coming off the ACL tear. Wouldn't want to touch that. Adam Humphries. I really like Adam Humphries, but you kind of got him in Braxton Berrios already. Guys that kind of stand out to me for you. Alan Hearns is not that bad. Sanders is experienced. T.Y. Hilton has some speed. Julio, obviously a big body, but he's probably going to want a little bit more money. If you wanted to trade Denzel Mims, you could take his money. It's not that much, cut maybe $1 million, $2 million, and you could hand it over to a free agent that has more experience and probably has a little bit more production. But again, I don't think the Jets are ready for that. Like, they are pretty much in the second year of a full rebuild, right? So with that in mind, I think year 3 of the rebuild is where you take risks like that, right? Year 3 is where you say, okay, you know what? Let's trade Mims. We'll go out and sign somebody who's experienced, who can help us right now, that we know is going to be consistent. Would you agree with that mindset of just like, it's just a little bit too early in the rebuild to be trading away some of these guys who have upside?
I agree. And you said it's just the upside. I mean, you knew he was a raw prospect when you drafted him in 2020. There's a reason he fell as far as he did in the draft, and why the Jets were able to trade down and still acquire him. You knew his route running had ways to go, but the physical, traits were there. So, and it, like you said, it's still very early. I mean, this time last year, he had that food poisoning thing and really couldn't learn LaFleur's playbook. And it's a very, detailed, specific, offense in terms of the routes that you got to run, the positions you got to play. It wasn't like 2020 where he was just out wide and, asked to win outside the numbers down the field with his size and speed in contested catch situations. And he can still, to me, have a role in that offense. Like, I think, his ability as a vertical threat can help Zach, with his arm strength. And the Jets do need a true red zone difference maker. And I think, possibly in a role like that, Mims could help. So to me, like you said, it's still, early in the Salah LaFleur era here, in year 2. And it makes the most sense, in my opinion, to still just give Mims, a little bit more of an opportunity here.
Yeah, totally. And, I'd even throw into the mix that When it comes to Mike LaFleur's offense and really just great offenses around the NFL, they build around their players, right? They say, okay, this is a player's strength. Let's extrapolate on that. Let's devise a couple of plays that focus on that. We saw it with Elijah Moore last year. We saw it with Corey Davis when he was healthy. Definitely Michael Carter had a lot of good runs. But I would like to say, like, the generalized concepts of an offense, he can fit in, but the problem is he's not on the field enough for LaFleur to really design plays that attack him, that focus on extrapolating on his strengths and his capabilities. When he gets on the field consistently, then LaFleur can say, okay, you know what? Let's build some plays that are focused on him. He's the primary read. Right now, Moore's the primary read. Davis, CD is the primary read. Read. So, like, I think he just needs to be on the field more. Like, he just doesn't have enough experience in the offense and can't be relied on. And, like, why are you going to build a couple of plays around a player who simply just can't stay on the field? So, or he's not, doesn't know the playbook entirely. So I think that's important for him, is just staying healthy, staying on the field, and, like, then they can start to build him into the system that already exists and is really building around some of the other playmakers already. And it seems like they have a good fundamental base down. Would you agree with that?
I agree. And that's a great point that you made. If he's not on the field, it's not like LaFleur is going to have the time, or it's not, wise to really invest into building plays around a unique skill set like Mims has, when you have flexibility in Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson with their routes and where you can deploy them across the formation. So with Mims, I think, it's when he gets those opportunities with the starting team, eventually here throughout the summer, upcoming in training camp, he's got to make an impact. Last year, the mental mistakes were huge with him. Just penalties pre-snap, not lining up in the right position. I think he's got to be on top of those details. And if so, like, the physical upside, it's still there. He's still only 24 years old. Zach is at an early point in his career to where they can still kind of mesh and develop, a camaraderie. And, it's really going to be interesting to see, what type of an opportunity he gets, with the starters in training camp, and what he does with those opportunities, because ultimately he's not someone you're looking at on special teams. And, like Jeff Smith is probably the Jets' sixth receiver. He's locked in that role. And, he's not even close to the physical or athletic, type of talent that Mims has, but he's a core special teams player. So, with Mims not really being, that player on teams, I think he's going to have to, prove himself on offense when he gets the chances to do so.
Absolutely. So I think we can kind of come to the conclusion here that Mims will probably be on the team for the 2022 season. He will have an opportunity to grow his role, to prove to Mike LaFleur, and Robert Saleh that he can be an integral part to this offense, because otherwise they're going to have to make a decision. It's probably going to include trading him or packaging him into some broader deal. And going with a more experienced option next year, because I feel like the Jets are in a spot where they can compete next year for playoffs. I think this year it's still too soon. I think they're going to make some really nice plays. I think they're going to compete against some really good teams. They might even beat some of those teams, like they beat Cincinnati. The Titans, like these are games that, like, they showed they're capable of competing against some of the best teams in the league. So that is where I want to see them go. I want to see them continue to do that. I want to see Zach Wilson avoid those mental mistakes. It's, of course, he's still growing, so it's okay for him to do it every now and then, but, eliminate them, the bad ones, at least the one where he's floating up passes on 50-50 balls right into cornerbacks' hands. Like, those are the ones I want to see him alleviate. I also want to see him hit his receivers on those screen passes. So many times I saw him whip those balls out to the screen, and she would just one hop him. You know what I mean? So, like, those are things that he needs to correct. Those are things we need to see more consistency out of Zach Wilson. And ultimately, like, that's what we want to see, is just Zach having a better season, putting it all together, starting to eliminate some of those liability issues that we saw last year as a rookie. But I think that's part of the process. He's got good coaches. I'm not really worried about it at this point. But hope you guys enjoyed this episode talking about Denzel Mims, what he's offering this team, what we should do with him. Hopefully you guys agree. Give him one more season, see how he sticks, see if he gets on the field and really carves out a role for himself. And then we go from there and kind of see how to evaluate him beyond 2022. As always, make sure to like and subscribe below. Catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets episode.